What is far deadlier than most people realize? Serious. Throwing a single punch. Here in Australia it's been criminalized because fights in pubs and clubs are pretty common. The single punch isn't what causes injury, but falling to the ground and hitting their head on the curb can kill, especially since drunk people usually don't have the capacity to soften their fall. Think twice before you risk taking a life over losing your pride for a night. Trucker here. I've had 2 blood clots in my legs from driving long distances and having my leg pressed against the corner of the seat for hours on end. One almost killed me. Apparently it's very common with truckers. You're supposed to stop and walk around every hour and a half to keep things circulating, which almost nobody does due to time constraints. The same thing happens in gaming chairs. Apparently people forget to move their legs because they're so focused on the game. You don't need to worry so much if you're younger, but if you're a gamer who's a little older, please be aware. Grapefruit in combination with many prescription drugs. Basically, grapefruit can affect the way your medications work. With some meds, adding grapefruit screws up the way your body metabolizes the drug, so you end up with far more than the prescribed dosage. It can also work in the opposite way with other drugs, leaving you with less than the prescribed dosage. This is especially bad if you have high blood pressure or arrhythmia. Testicular torsion. Don't be embarrassed to ask for help. In all honesty, the embarrassment is all in your head. Doctors, nurses really don't give a duck. They really don't care and aren't judging you one bit. They have seen everything and then some more, but they will judge you if you make the foolish decision not to seek help cause of made up embarrassment and lose your balls. The pain might not be severe, but you have a few hours tops before your balls die. A Brazilian butt lift barrels gives people a figure reminiscent of the Kardashians and is hugely popular for getting that Instagram body. But a paper in the Aesthetic Surgery Journal found that 1 in 3,000 BBLs resulted in death, making it the world's most dangerous cosmetic procedure. Quit drinking. Been an EMT for a while and work with a lot of the homeless population. Will get calls for people who decided today is the day to finally quit drinking and do it cold turkey. As soon as the next morning, people can present with delirium tremens. Severe withdrawals can induce seizures and can also lead to death. A lot of these people will think because they quit hard drugs like heroin or meth, cold turkey alcohol would be the same without knowing the major effects it can have on your health. Grapefruit juice interacts with a lot of medications and could be very harmful to you depending on the medications you take. Get the duty handled or get a nasty kidney infection. Holding your breath while scuba diving. To most people who don't scuba dive it may sound harmless, but if you hold your breath and ascend even a little over a meter, you can suffer major lung damage as a result of the gas in your lungs expanding from the lessening pressure. Essential oils. Do not put them in your food. They are not made to be food safe. Some of them are capable of burning a hole in your esophagus. Why people think they're food safe, I'll never know. Touching shit inside a guitar amp can duck you up really bad. It holds a charge, and it all comes out at once if you touch the wrong spot. Oleandernerium. In fact, it's one of the most common ornamental plants in Southern California, planted in people's backyards and along freeways. The only problem is it's one of the most poisonous plants in the world. Toxic compounds include nereoside, alendroside, and saponins. Smoke. It's not only the fire that can kill you, and there is a very good reason you're taught to stay low escaping a fire. The smoke is a hot gas layer that can melt your face off, and that's forgetting the lung damage that it can do. I survived a house fire when I was 12. 25 years later I still have to explain the scarring on my lungs when I have a chest x-ray. I have also developed a long-term respiratory illness. I don't really complain, though, since if my dad had woken up 5 minutes later we would all have died. Going for runs on the roads at night without wearing lights or reflectors. Oftentimes people even wear black. They think that just because they can see the car, that the car can see them. It only takes one accident to change someone's life completely. Engulfment and confined spaces. With confined spaces, people usually don't realize that O2 runs out rather quickly. Engulfment because people probably don't think about essentially drowning in non-liquids. Visine. People seem to have this idea that a few drops of Visine in someone's drink will give them diarrhea, and do it to prank each other, or get some sort of satisfaction with petty revenge. People are sitting in prison for murder for doing this. The main active ingredient is called tetrahydrozoline. Once it enters your gastrointestinal tract, it can be absorbed by your intestines and end up in your blood, causing your blood pressure and heart rate to drop to potentially life-threatening levels. It really makes me wonder how many people have died due to people copycatting that scene in Wedding Crashers. Acetaminophen. It's rough on your liver in large doses. I know a lot of people who ignore the recommended dose and pop them like they are Skittles for pain. This is incredibly dangerous. Penile fracture. If this happens to you, do not hesitate to get medical help. 12 weeks ago this happened to me. The tissue that fills with blood and makes the penis erect can fracture when impacted awkwardly. Bended 45 eggs and a huge hematoma and swelling. I went the ed, and after the poor student's doctor saw it, I was rushed into hospital. I was informed if it wasn't surgically fixed it could mean necrosis and removal. The surgical procedure involved degloving the penis, removing the hematoma, stitching up the fractured tissue under the skin, and then stitching the skin back on. Still having nerve pain, not mention the effect it's had on our sex life. Posted safety precautions. When there are signs saying something, lots ignore thinking they know better. I used to work it for a place that makes big tractors. Different stations are restricted from using certain PPE. One day this lady was wearing the wrong gloves. Her station is only supposed to use latex. She didn't take that seriously and wore thicker reinforced gloves. She was using the lug nut machine that tightens 12 giant lugs at once. Her glove got caught, and instead of ripping the fingertip off of her latex glove it ripped her thumb right the duck off her hand. I witnessed it, and her mistake haunts me to this day. They had to restrain her, while two men held her hand up in the air away from her. Her wails and screams were terrifying, all because she ignored a well-placed warning. A hangnail. Yes, seriously, I had a hangnail once. It got infected. It became swollen and inflamed. The swelling sealed it shut. The abscess became worse. I went to urgent care. They took one look at my finger and sent me to the emergency room. I was becoming septic. I spent about 36 hours in the hospital, then home for 2 months of antibiotics. I could have died. Tylenol. It's actually a lot easier to overdose on than most people realize. And it slowly destroys your liver over a period of days. Not a fun way to die, to put it lightly. Eating a slug. Obviously it's nasty, but kids do stupid shit as dares or even in hazing rituals. Slugs contain parasites that will get into your brain and ducking kill you slowly. Lack of sleep. Increased risk of basically everything you can think of, not to mention that accidents are far more common when you're tired. The less sleep you get, the shorter your lifespan. Fine. I'll go to bed. Just want to throw a story out here. I'm a dentist. I have a colleague who had a patient that needed a root canal. The patient put it off. He had a vacation coming up. He was going to Alaska in bush country to go hunting by himself. Now Alaska bush country means you are alone. He was dropped off, and his ride wasn't going to come back to pick him up for a week or two. Well, after his ride left, the tooth he needed to get his root canal on blew up, had severe pain, and was all alone, no one to help him in the middle of nowhere. This was mid to late 90s, so no cell phone either. Well, his ride came back to pick him up. Finds a dead body. The guy killed himself. He couldn't take the pain anymore. Pain was so bad he couldn't wait the 1 or 2 weeks for his ride to come back. Shot himself, left a suicide note telling his story. Moral of the story: don't put this shit off. There is no pain like tooth pain. touchscreen consoles in cars. Mazda now disables touch functionality in their vehicles because they found that when drivers interact with the touchscreen they drift the vehicle to the right, taking your eyes off the road to press 3 buttons in 3 different positions on the touchscreen, with a latency each time you press a button. Because your seat heaters are literally burning your ass while trying to maintain control of the vehicle during freeway traffic is goddamn dangerous. Exploring abandoned places. When I was a kid I would do it all the time and take photos without any form of facial protection. Fast forward years later and I learn about how toxic certain molds can be. How many older buildings use materials like asbestos which can be in the air when places are left to rot, etc. At this point I just thank God I never had to deal with the aftermath of any of that. Also, to anyone who enjoys doing this, I get it. I just want to bring awareness to the fact that if you participate, a respirator and goggles should be a must. Also, as a side note, be wary of scrappers and individuals looking for a place to do drugs. Had a run-in like that during one of the last excursions I made, and it's not fun. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,